Hi, and welcome. Thank you for joining us. We are going to be recapping the Monrovia Unified School Board meeting from October 23rd. I'm Melissa Taylor. I'm going to be hosting tonight, and I have Chris Loos and Ryan Menlove. I knew I was going to do it. This is our best attempt to get you all the information from a 4.5-hour long school board meeting in hopefully a half an hour. We're going to get as much as we can right, and we might make some mistakes, but I think between the three of us, we all watched it, so we have a good idea of what happened on Wednesday. So bear with us here.
And Brian, what year did you graduate?
So I graduated in '92.
Oh, wow.
You guys were... I was like,
yeah,
I know, Brian.
We were there.
Yeah,
we were there.
Like, yeah. I was
and
93, so
I've been teaching there now for 24 years.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
So,
and you teach economics?
I teach economics, government, and AP government.
Okay, awesome.
Thanks for jumping in.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah,
glad to be
for
here.
sure. If you'd like to join us, KGEM-TV at Gmail. The more people we have here, the better snapshot we get of the meeting. So it only helps if you can be here. KGEM-TV at gmail.com. We'd love to have you.
You could give your kids extra credit for doing their civic duty.
Getting involved? That's
right.
So, all right. So the meeting started at 6:40 p.m. We had Pledge of Allegiance by the Santa Fe principal and students from the robotics team. All members were there. Board member Hammond dialed in remotely, but they were all present. No report out from closed session, and minutes were approved. So then they went to recognitions and communications at 6 minutes and 20 at the 6-minute mark. Yep. They recognized the class of 1984 for maintaining the Monrovia Hillside M, which there's been a lot of Facebook talk about that, so I'm glad people are involved. Miss Annette, the librarian, was a member of that class, so she was there. Then they went into board member reports, and board member Lockerbie discussed the MHS marching band took first place, which is awesome. And then percussion won sweepstakes, which means they won the top prize out of everything, which is also awesome. Board member Anderson discussed that they just broke ground on Monroe fencing thanks to funds. And she mentioned that so far dollars have been spent to pay for roofing and HVAC repairs.
I'm going to say I like the shout about Measure because I started to feel like that was like mystery money that we know it's going. Where is it? Yeah, right. So that was nice.
And I think she says it later on, but I will give board member Travanti accolades for this, that she mentioned putting on the website specifically that, like making a page on the website so people can know what the money's doing, what we've done, what's in the works, because lots of people don't watch meetings, and so they don't know what's happening.
And I'd say regardless of how you spend the money, there's always going to be controversy.
Probably.
You're never going to make anyone happy when you spend the
right.
money. It's just the way it is.
But when you show it.
When you show it, at least say it's transparent.
Yeah. And then this is awesome, I thought, actually. Student representative Emily Briano said that they're finishing the first term and that there are a lot of students from both schools graduating ahead of schedule thanks to taking extra classes. So that's awesome. Nice. Superintendent Dr. Hart-Rodas talked about the Citrus Community Day on October 18th, which was awesome. And I actually got to do this in May, and I was blown away by Citrus and came home that night being like, everybody needs to go. It has so many amazing programs, and it's free. So if you've got a high school kid who might not be ready for college, go check out Citrus.
And I emphasize so much in my classes, just avoid debt.
Yeah.
Avoid debt. When you're going to college, you can go to Citrus for free for 2 years.
Yeah.
And just avoid that whole debt that's going to follow you the rest of your life, if you can.
Speaking from experience.
Yeah. I went to Citrus.
Did you?
Yeah.
I did as well.
I flunked out from Citrus, but that's a different...
You didn't have to say that. I went to community college my first year. I was in Virginia, but...
Their game room was really fun. I was too young. Miss Pac-Man and Galaga got a lot of my time.
Took priority.
Yeah.
On the 17th, we participated in the Great Shakeout, and on the 16th was the State of the Schools and also a dedication to Ann Battle. And KGEM recorded State of the Schools, so you can go to our channel, and if you didn't get a chance to catch that, watch that there.
And I'll say that was a great event. I had the opportunity to have Ms. Battle as a teacher. Maybe you did as well.
Yeah, same.
And then to be a colleague of hers, it was well deserved. I was glad to see that happened.
She's the reason my sister is a photographer right now.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
That was her.
She affected a lot of people's lives for the positives, for sure.
That's what teachers do.
Mm-hmm.
So then we'll move into public comments at 18 minutes and 30 seconds. And I tried to condense these. There were a lot. And I tried to highlight the priorities, so feel free to chime in here. And if I mispronounce anybody's name wrong, I am deeply sorry. I did the best I could. Tanya Velasco asked for lockers at Santa Fe. There's 2 heavy backpacks, and maybe some Measure MM money could be used for lockers, which I just found out last spring that Clifton and Santa Fe don't have lockers, and I see how heavy my child's elementary school bag is. So
that 8th grade one is no joke either for Elijah. Yeah. So.
And it's interesting because so many of these books are going digital anyways. They
Right.
even have hard copy books, but I think we're required still to provide hard copy books.
Well, that and then your laptop, and if you bring your lunch, like that's a lot. Then Rochelle Munoz discussed the district benchmark test is taking away from valuable class time. We moved to a new math program this year, Eureka Math, and a bunch of teachers came together and found that the average student will need 6 hours just to take the test. They already have benchmarks through iReady and other programs, and it's just it might be redundant to have all of these tests. And then when asked clarifying questions, it was found that when they did the pilot program for Eureka, the benchmark test was not part of that. So it was an add-on, and they purchased it. And at the time, they didn't know how long it was going to take, but it really is taking a lot of time. So I believe Board Member Lockerbie asked if they could look into that and see if it is a necessary thing.
She had mentioned also too that in talking about it, they weren't really aware.
Right.
And that felt weird.
Yeah.
Like to have something approved that didn't know how long it takes, didn't know how long it's going to roll out for. I'm like, wow, you should kind of know.
Yeah.
I felt like that should all be information that they would have known before signing off.
Yeah, yeah.
And the state also requires a number of these tests already.
Yeah.
So the question to ask is, where are these benchmarks coming from? Who's mandating these benchmarks? Because we already have a number from the state.
Right. And what are we doing with it?
To add more to what are we doing with it?
Yeah, yeah. So then Brianna Kohler, Tony Goodwin, Jeremy Bestpitch, Jennifer Lindy, Allison Ramsey, and Kai Ramsey all had comments on the Village program. Number of complaints and asked for reassessment. The Boys and Girls Club was supposed... So I'm going to take a step back and remind everybody that last November, the board was... I have 2 pens in my hand. Last November, the board was presented with a situation where they needed to pay roughly $1 million by December 15th to Village, because at the time they had decided that they were going to accept anybody who needed before and after school care, which is great. Anybody who needs this, we are not going to turn you away. We have the funds. Let's do it. They also anticipated having a number of staff hired into Village, and that did not happen. So they were contracting positions out, which was costing more money than it would, when you use a third-party system. So they were given you have to pay this bill or it goes away. And so they paid the bill, but then they asked let's look at other programs. And in that time, they looked at the Boys and Girls Club. So the Boys and Girls Club came, and what the public comments were that was supposed to be supplemental staff for open positions, that there's contracted workers who may lose their jobs. They're asking Monrovia School Board to invest in the unified staff. There seems to be a lack of communications, different things going on at different sites. And the quality, parents spoke and a participant spoke, mentioning that the quality of the Village program has gone down, and they're just extremely unhappy with it.
I appreciate Board Member Lockerbie for asking to see how much time is being allocated to homework, hanging time, and programs or whatnot. It was also I don't know the conversations that happen behind that allow, hey, Village, you're doing this way. Boys and Girls Club, you're doing this way. It sounds like somebody gave the keys to Boys and Girls Club, and maybe Village didn't know that they had car keys too. And so it's just, there doesn't seem to be a united front in how Village and Boys Club work collectively or cohesively in it. It just feels that way as I'm watching them.
Yeah. I am very removed because where my kids go to school, we just have the Boys and Girls Club, and so I see what Boys and Girls Club's done. But listening to comments, it does sound that there's lack of transparency and who's on first and who's in charge.
Well, it was also kind of thrown at the last minute that this is how it's happening.
Yeah.
So I gotta believe that if that was how that was communicated, I don't know how, unless it was because of all the communication happening behind the scenes that it came in late, but I would hope it would be clearer by now as we're getting ready for the holiday break.
Yeah, and Board Member Lockerbie also asked for an update at the next meeting to give a history of the timeline of what happened. And so maybe that will shed some light onto the questions, and maybe in discussing that, when you discuss it, solutions somehow appear because once you verbally talk it out, you figure it out sometimes.
And one of the things we were talking about beforehand is I know a lot of specifics have been given, and I've seen board meeting after board meeting of parents that are unhappy with the transition. But I know I'd want to hear even more specifics. What exactly is the problem with our current program that they have now?
Yeah.
As opposed to coming in and saying that you're upset the way it was done. Okay, well, what is currently going on now that you don't like that our district can improve upon?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm sure some of those have been put out there, but I think it would help for the board even to know specifically what the issue is, as opposed to a general, I don't like this transition.
Right.
Absolutely agree.
Solutions always go farther than. Then we had comments from Michelle Serafin, Jeff Westra, and Matt Yulton commenting on safety issues with the Monrovia High School pool, focusing on a lack of repairs. There's an unfair allocation of money for sports. One of the comments that I kind of took me by surprise, but I was like, oh, that's legit, is that they were speaking on behalf of the water polo team, is that's a sport that plays in the Olympic level. Like, we have and football does not. And, the percentage of people who can go on for sports is a lot greater for besides just football. Like, you've got more opportunities, and where's the money being allocated? And I never thought of that until it was said last night.
And there's quite a history here, being in aquatics myself. I played water polo at the high school. I coached water polo at the high school for many years. And I definitely saw when the initial bond, I don't remember the original bond that paid for the science building and the new stadium. Nothing was done with the pool. At one point, we had an agreement with the city where we worked on the pool, or they contracted together with the pool. And that contract, then the city, for whatever reason, one entity or the other decided we're going to go on our own. The city's on their own city. The pool is now completely under the purview of the school district. And there's a lot of repair that needs to be done in that pool. I do know that a lot of pools in our area, because I currently referee water polo as well. So I'm going around lots of different pools, and a lot of the schools in our area are building new pools. Now we're talking millions of dollars for pools. But I will also say that a lot of these schools are getting grants from the LA 84 Olympics. There's a lot of money out there because the Olympics are coming back. There's this money for these schools to build new pools so these teams can come and have a spot to practice. And it's been known in our district. I don't know if anyone ever looked into applying for a grant to work on our pool or not, but I know that it's definitely in need of repair.
What does Dylan call it? Free money? No, he has a term for what grant money is, but other people's money. That's what it is.
And I'll be honest, like, as a basketball player at Monrovia, like, we knew which sports were getting the better look than others. Like, you know what I mean? When you're going to the football school or the swimming school or the track school or the whatever. So, but at the same time, I feel like visiting teams that have kids leaving with bloody feet.
The last comment on it was that we really are putting ourselves in a position for legal lawsuits that could happen due to other teams. And then also other teams not wanting to play at our school, and then that giving our students a less competitive advantage because they're not playing against school. And you know how it is when you've got state-of-the-art equipment, you're a state-of-the-art player because there's more you can do. You're not worried about your foot.
At one point, we had the best school in our area, or best pool in our area, and now traveling around myself, I will say we probably have one of the worst pools in the area.
I know, that makes me sad. We did have one of the best.
The thing is, Measure MM money can be spent on facilities, so that might be something to talk about. Moving on, and then Sharon Varner commented on clarity on regional services and TK classes to look at the procedure of transition. She also spoke again later. Then we move into public comments that were on the agenda at the 18-minute mark. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Desiree Harbaugh.
Harbaugh.
I was like, I'm her friend. I know I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Carol Romero and another gentleman talked about the fencing at Plymouth. Currently, what is being proposed by the architect firm impedes traffic flow and would prohibit space to meet children. It would take away a big open space and narrow it to one exit, which is a safety issue. Some of the comments were publicly, it does not look like the architect took into consideration what the community wanted, what the principal had suggested. They asked for a pause on the fence, and I believe the school board has agreed to relook at it because that fence is not supposed to go in until January. And then Rebecca Ellercon,
Yes.
Oh, I did it. Asked the board to please look at settlement agreements with similar districts in our size to provide a comparable salary to make it right for MUSD teachers and staff.
Along those first lines, the fencing update, it is interesting. I think one of the board members specifically talked to the contractor saying you were supposed to get community input. That was your job. And it didn't sound like it happened. But then he came back saying, well, there's going to be an additional cost now if we do that, which I thought that was interesting because if that was initially supposed to happen in the first place, why didn't it happen?
Right.
One thing, of course. And then, of course, my hat of being on the teachers union and a teacher in the district, our salaries have fallen quite a bit low compared to all of our LA County colleagues. So we try constantly to stay in the third quartile with our salaries, and we have dropped to near the bottom of all of LA County salaries. And it's hard to maintain good teachers. It's hard to maintain good principals. We've had administrators and teachers leave for better paying jobs, and it's hard to blame them.
I think one of the things I saw, which this is my opinion, this is not a reflection on anything that happened at the meeting, was that we are ranked 41st out of 47, and Arcadia, literally the city right next to us, separated by a street, was 9th. And I was thinking, what is the discrepancy between those two zip codes?
That ninth?
A lot of it has to just come down to funding as well,
which we will get into that too.
I will say too, some of the things that felt like that were being mentioned in regard to the fencing at Plymouth was just a lack of listening to listening. As they were supposed to talk, to them. It did sound also like they had great confidence in the principal. I don't know the principal at Plymouth, but to talk to the principal about it, what could be done, how could we work this better for the kids. And again, communication, I think that's huge to be able to teach our kids how to communicate better. And it's also easier to demonstrate if we can do it ourselves. I'm just a fan of great communication.
Same.
How great would it be for them to even ask the kids at the school and let them feel empowered,
100%.
they had a voice in the process.
So then they that gets us to the 1 hour mark where they asked for a 5-minute recess. I think that
we're a quarter of the way there.
We're a quarter of the way through. So then at 1 hour and 24 in, they did a Measure MM facilities update from Mr. Alzabid, and he just updated what they've done with Measure MM. I'll try to do this real quick. Completed roofing at Wild Rose, Clifton, Monroe, the bus facilities. At Mayflower has had some roofing completed. The high school has not, and walkways at Mayflower have not been completed because they want to wait till the rainy season is over. They jump in here if you know this, but they received grants from the Cal Shappy ventilation program, and they were all the way through the process, and then the grant was abolished. So I'm not sure if the HVAC system has been updated or parts of it have been updated or if that's on hold. And then they received brand new water heaters for all the school sites free of charge, which is awesome. And once they sell the second bond. And then the next phase of the Measure MM funding will be a PA system, keyless entry doors. And Board Member Travanti just wanted to remind everyone that the way the bond was sold and how they really got people vested into this was that security was the number one issue, making schools safer. This was right after Uvalde. So as of right now, there are new security systems and vape cameras at the high school with 2 people monitoring those videos. So they are doing stuff, and this again is where Board Member Travanti asked to put it on there. And to your point, there's always going to be people who don't like what we're spending the money on, but maybe have another focus group on where people think we should spend the money.
Here would be one of my biggest concerns with Measure MM money. And that is, this kind of jumps ahead a little bit, and you'll mention this in just a little bit, but the fiscal stabilization plan. So we have a school district that's spending money for new roofs, new gates, yet they're also mentioning at some point, we'll get to this in a little bit, that they're looking at closing a school. I hope there's enough forethought to, hey, let's not fix a roof over here, because I don't know how much a one school roof costs, but I'm assuming in the hundreds of thousands of dollars for one school, only to find out that we're going to have to close that school. So now we've just used all of our money here, because we're taxpayers here in the city of Monrovia. We've just used our money to put a new roof and new fence on a school that we are going to shutter, and all that money that we could have used somewhere else. I just hope that there's that forethought going into down the road. Let's not spend the money if we're going to close the school. Yeah,
it's a great point. At the 2-hour and 17-minute mark, they moved the board member appointments, action items J4 and J5, up onto the agenda. Again, Board Member Travanti brought up the disservice of CRVA to the community, as no one is elected. These appointees are not being elected. The community that they represent doesn't have a voice. They're not going to have really a chance except for 2 minutes to hear from them. So please contact your legislators, because while CRVA is a good rule in theory, it does disproportionately affect communities of our size, which I totally agree with. For trustee area number 1, there were 2 candidates, Antonia Delane and Danielle Gomez-Tagla. Both were very passionate about school, education, increasing funding, and increasing equitability. In a 3-2 vote, Mr. Gomez-Tagla was appointed. And then for trustee area number 2, there was only 1 candidate, Michael O'Con, who, very similar, seemed very passionate about education and equitability. So he was appointed as well, as there was no opposing candidates.
This was such an awkward process.
And I
At least
totally
for the first 2.
It was cringe
You're
the whole
having
time.
an open interview with everyone to watch, and my heart just went out to both these candidates as well. Thinking, they're gonna, everybody's watching, and now do we have to debate in public and tell you what I think about it? It's just.
And then texting, which I'm glad they didn't do it, like text the name.
Right.
Yeah, Board Member Hammond was out, and I'm like, am I watching this in real time?
And they didn't like it either. Our board members did not. Yeah, they did not like it.
100%.
Nobody liked it.
They were all like, "This is so awkward and sterile, and I don't want to do this at all." So,
question: where the candidates? So they just live in the city, anyone could run.
No. So the way they districted the city into the 5 districts, they could only appoint somebody from that district. So, like, I live in District 5. I can't be appointed to represent District 1. So somebody who lives in that area. And nobody filed. Obviously, you guys have talked about this. Nobody filed, so they needed to get people to step up, and then this is how they did it, which, to be fair, is not representative of the community. They didn't get voted. This is nothing against Michael O'Con. You're a great guy, but nobody ran against him. So, and it's the same thing with Board Member Hammond. That's the flip side of all of this, of why they wanted to do this, is because they're like, it'll give greater people running and more chances, but this is now the 2nd school board election where nobody's run against the candidates, and so it's not, or the incumbents, not the candidates. So I think everybody in the city is agreed that it's not good. We wish there was a different outcome, and we'll hopefully people will write their legislators.
And it's
Yes.
going to be hard to step up and be a board member right now with the decisions they have to make. So
Right.
it's hard not to blame people for not wanting to
Right,
step
right,
up, because
right.
they got some hard decisions coming their way.
Which leads us to hour 3. We are over halfway there. The fiscal stabilization plan progress update. And this is where a big chunk of the meeting is. And I will try to do my best to be succinct here. You can tune in at the 3 hour and 7 minute mark. Dr. Hart-Rodas did a great job of calculating this all the way back to January. In January, there was a reduction plan of $3.2 million for the 25-26 school year based on what COLA was going to be. That showed us that we would not be able to meet our reserves of 3%. The general reserve is our OOPS fund. So we're supposed to legally have minimum of 3%, at most 10%. And that money is there for us in case something happens that we can dip into and fix stuff. Then in March, the budget came out, So then in March, they broke it down, and there was going to be a focus on increasing attendance, finding ways to stop decline, and monitoring unduplicated student count. Then in May, it came out that COLA was bumped to 1.7%. MUSD would still not meet the required reserves. And at that point, recommendations were to right-size the staffing to meet funding in various ways, like not replacing Mr. Garcia, not replacing Dr. Hart-Rodas' previous role. The big issue here is that we have seen declining students, and this has been a 10-year problem. To be fair, this is not just a Monrovia problem. This is a California problem. This is a national problem due to private schools, homeschooling, moving out of state. Public school funding is going down, and a lot of that is based on attendance. It's based on enrollment. We've had the same number of teachers for the past 10 years.
Actually, we're one teacher more than we had 10 years ago, which
but we
is
have
interesting.
less students. One of the things that they really hammered home was that COVID money helped, but it's going away, which I thought COVID money was like a spend one time, not for ongoing things, but I could be wrong there. And then the big thing is that COVID had a hold and harmless. So because of COVID, we were not counting absentees. We were just taking an average, but we are facing a cliff now because that goes away. And so funding is now going to go back to based on attendance. And then we are paying $5.9 million in teacher retirement and $3.4 million for classified staff, which, again, my opinion, I believe we should. They have worked, they have invested their time. And then special ed is a mandated requirement, but it's grossly underfunded, which is why we have one of the reasons our reserves are low is because we have to dip into that to pay for stuff. And they've done a lot of things. They've increased classified staff to rely less on agencies. They've reduced admin expenses, but it's still not cutting it. The Monroe and Wild Rose combination, what do you want to call that? Reallocation. Will save money.
Consolidation.
Consolidation.
Yes.
But that's only going to get us to 3.8, and in August it came out that we actually needed to get another $6.7 million. And so this is all super important because on November 13th, the board is going to have to decide how are we going to save this money. And they proposed various ways, and I printed out all these slideshows, but you guys can go, this is more important for you to probably watch. This is about 45 to 50 minutes of discussion. It's all very important. Again, I said it starts at the 3 hour mark, but what they're faced with is a reduction in force, possibly a redistribution of grades, TK to 6, and then have middle school just be 7th and 8th. Reduction in programs because we have a lot of programs, but not a lot of clientele.
I'm going to say I'm a fan of that. The 7th and 8th.
You know what?
I'm a fan.
You mentioned the same thing
going
beforehand.
back to what you just said and I was like, put a pin because I'll call back to that about getting input with the students and the fencing. Mm-hmm. My daughter's in 5th grade, and I, at first, was like, no, 6th grade, you need to go to middle school. That's middle school. That's what I know. And I asked her, I said, if this was a possibility that 6th grade had to stay at your elementary school, would you want to? And she said, oh, absolutely, 100%. And I thought about it, and this is what made me like it, was that she will be going into 6th grade. She will be 11. There is a vast difference between 11 and 14, like huge difference. And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, it's not a terrible idea. And a lot of other parents I've spoken to really like that. And a lot of kids are just not ready to make that jump yet.
I experienced it. Pasadena Christian School was exactly that. It was like pre or whatever to 6th, 7th, and 8th were junior high, and then you were out after that.
There's a lot of schools like that.
Yeah.
It was great, like, and even now having a son in the 8th, seeing him as a 6th grader on campus with 8th graders, it was like, whoa.
You're too little to be
here. My man with half a mustache, and then my son was like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, man.
Yeah. Well, so they're going on a road. They called it a road show. They'll be at Santa Fe, Clifton, and MHS. They're just waiting on dates, and they want to give you guys this out to the public, and they want your feedback. And I told my daughter to write a letter because I think it's really important, because school is everyone's affected. Yes. Parents are affected, teachers are affected, students are affected, and as much input that the board can get will help them help the community. What they said was by November 13th, they have to decide all of these things. They don't have to decide if they're going to close a school, what school they're going to close. They just have to say, okay, and maybe this is a way, I don't know all of the things. Maybe they won't have to close a school if they do this, and it can reallocate resources and keep communities, because I know it's, whatever they do, people are going to be unhappy.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because I think, much like we were talking about spending money, is that there's a lot of programs that they listed that they're going to hurt. My kid's in this program, your kid's in this program, and some of these programs are going to be consolidated, and it's going to hurt no matter what they close. Whether they close a school, and obviously any school that might be, it's going to hurt somebody somewhere. There's no easy way about reducing $8.5 million over the next couple of years. And unfortunately, it's necessary, considering where we're at. To give my own opinion, I know I've spoken at the board meeting a number of times, saying that yes, part of this is out of our hands, and we're dealing with declining enrollment. But the other part of it is we've been dealing with declining enrollment for 10 years. This should have been a systematic process of reducing, as opposed to now all of a sudden we are $8.5 million in the hole, and oops, what are we going to do now?
Right.
I appreciate you saying that. That's when I watch it. That's the first thing that I'm always thinking. I'm like, well, we have one teacher more, and then over 10. It was 10 plus. It's been going the other way.
Right.
Like,
and this is not a knock on teachers at all. Of any of that, because I think the community. I know the community supports our teachers, and I know, especially when we have kids in the school system, like you probably know our kids better than we know our kids sometimes. And we want our teachers to be compensated in a fair way to other cities nearby, and so that they can stay here. And if this is a way that, if we have to close programs, close a school, reallocate, and this is a way to get our tenured teachers the salary they need so that they can stay here and continue to teach our children and care for them, I think that's, it's going to hurt somebody.
There's kind of two things that they're dealing with. Number one, they're dealing with we have to cut $8.5 million just to even survive. Be solvent.
Yeah.
And then there's the issue of, all right, we need to cut, but also our teachers are low in all of LA County. They're very low. So I've lost some great colleagues that are phenomenal teachers that have gone to other districts because they get paid more.
Right.
And it's hard. I'd love to see these teachers stay here. So we have the school district realizing we have to make cuts, but also what are we doing for our employees here to make their lives better? I know one of the things that Mr. Vanti, I think, mentioned as they were talking about COLA and how this COLA was being taken away. She had mentioned, well, our school district costs are going up, our mail's going up, our gas is going up, our garbage is going up. And I'm thinking, well, we were sitting there watching the meeting together, so wait a minute, ours are going up too. And she's a teacher as well. She teaches TK at Wild Rose. Right. And so every one of those employees, their costs are going up as well. And so when that cost of living doesn't get passed on to teachers, we're losing in the end.
Right. And one of the things I just looked at, to your point of like, this has been going on for 10 years. We're clearly not the only district facing this, right? So what have other people done?
I think, sorry to interrupt you, in my looking at it, the only district that is really not facing declining enrollment might be Arcadia and San Marino.
Yeah.
That I, in my travels around, is all the others, and for whatever reason, Arcadia and San Marino aren't declining in enrollment.
Yeah.
Maybe it's one of those two.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting that those two communities are staying pretty
afloat.
right where they're at.
Yeah, but like statewide, San Jose, everything. And so I had looked up what other school districts have done and what they've done. And one of the big things, and they mentioned it several times in the school board meeting, and we've kind of all talked about it, is that the cost of living in Monrovia is just high. New families are not moving in, so new kids are not coming to our school. This is just my opinion, throwing it out there, food for thought, look into it if you want to. But there are a lot of school districts that have worked with their city council to create affordable housing programs for new teachers so that new teachers can come in and affordably live, get like a down payment on a house and stay in that district, because the cost of living is high. It causes high turnover, especially if they're not being compensated to live in the district. So there's a lot of solutions out there. I know school board staff is all very, they got a lot going on, so there's not one more thing to throw on their plate. But I also know statistically solutions are out there. And I will finish my thought on this is what board member Trevante said, is that we don't want the state to come knocking on our doors and making the decisions for us. They've already done that with how we appoint school board members, which isn't good. Nobody likes that, and we really don't want them to come in and just willy-nilly, okay, well, we think this school should close, and then people are even more upset because we knew what was on the line and we didn't do anything. So I think we've got all the information. It would be best if the community could get involved and the school board is transparent about everything. I think they're trying.
Well, I feel like if the community getting involved now to help, because at no point have we discussed like foresight, right? Like, and what it's going to look like for my son's kids. Should this be where he is? You know what I mean? He is and is able. Like, my kid is going to school. You know what I mean? So it's like, how did that happen?
Right.
And now it's in this state. So if community is not involved, it's hard to get out.
Right.
Even further, because you're barely trying to string it all together.
Right.
And it just makes me sad to see that, being someone that's from here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Get your students involved. Have them come out.
I know, for sure. It's a delicate line to walk, to say, get my students out and be involved. Is that something that they can go to meetings? I can't encourage them to go to the meetings. They're going to have their own voice, but it's definitely a delicate line to walk with.
For sure. For sure. Well, then the board at that point adjourned at 4 minutes and 4 hours. Thank you. 4 hours and you know what? I skipped the end here. The action items. They did consent. They pulled the TK. I didn't write it down.
So they were discussing the issues of TK. Shannon Varner got up and spoke a little bit because of her concern that there's a possibility that they're going to have 3-year-olds in TK.
That aren't potty trained.
And that aren't potty trained, number one. But not only that, we have furniture that's not designed for those little bodies.
Yes.
The furniture order that we thought we were getting under our previous superintendent came in and was supposed to be adjustable. They're not adjustable. So now you have 3-year-old little bodies sitting there that in a classroom that's not meant for that 3-year-old, nor are the bathrooms, the urinals, the sinks.
Yeah.
And so it's something coming their way that they're really concerned about. How is our district going to deal with that? Yeah,
that was item 8, and they under the consent calendar for human resources, and they pulled that to discuss it at the next school board meeting. The consent agenda, that started at hour 4, 8 minutes. Then at hour 4, 15 minutes, they did action items, which was an agreement with Rosetta Stone. And then what was the last one? Now all my papers are out of order. You're never going to have me host this again.
Well, we had Red Ribbon Week. That was one.
It.
Board member appointee, trust area 1 and 2, and we did that, and those are the action items.
And they all passed.
Let's see. We have Rosetta Stone, and there was the security cameras with the Classified Employees Association. Just their concern, since there are security cameras all around now, which is great for safety.
Yes.
How is that going to be used if there need be a disciplinary matter with a staff member?
Yeah.
How is that going to protect their rights? So that was the other action item.
Yeah. And then, as you mentioned, the Red Ribbon Week, and then the next meeting dates are November 13th, which they will have the roadshow between them, so please attend. December 18th and January 15th. And new business, schools will be closed on November 11th for Veterans Day and November 25th through 29th for Thanksgiving break. And the meeting adjourned at 4 hours and 21 minutes.
And I'll just add, if you hear about those road shows, get out there, go see them, make an effort to go find out what they're doing so that your voice can be heard. Otherwise, decisions are going to be made by the people in the room, the 3 people that show up. So please make an effort to get out there and go see them.
And then one final plug for KGEM here is that in an era of not having a local newspaper, not having local media besides Facebook, which is mostly people's opinions, this is your best.
Or.
What?
You said people's opinions. I said or ...
So this is your best place to get news on what's happening at the school board meeting. We're currently only doing one school board meeting a month, but as you can see, we've got a lot that we need to discuss, and we would like to do more school board meetings. So if you know anybody, if you would like to come, we like making new friends. We like hanging out with old friends. So come, please be a part of this with us.
Yeah, and I'm gonna shout, like, since I get to sit on this one, I get to have my last, like, a final comment. But to the school board, we appreciate you. Like, I know this could feel like your moment of, like, see, they're picking at everything we're doing. It's just us going through it. And I hope this helps you see it. We want people to be more involved. So we are advocating for them to come to these meetings so they could talk to you. There's the frustration side that falls for as you're watching things happen, and y'all are in there, y'all got your sleeves rolled up and you're in it. But like, it's tough to see paper, the mentoring thing that was really great, and this is gonna be so good, and all the kids are gonna use it, to a couple years later it being the thing that, okay, but now we're moving away from that. It didn't really work out the way that we thought. Hey, we're bringing this person in to be the superintendent, and we think it's gonna be great. And guess what? The superintendent isn't gonna work out too great, so it's going. And it's no shade to you, Dr. Pollahart Rodas. Like, I'm pulling for you, and I see the work you're doing. But watching these cycles happen is rough. So that's what, like, the heart and goal for me personally here is to get people involved, get y'all the help you need to be able to make things happen. It's rough. I appreciate you, and I'm usually sitting in this seat, and it probably feels like I'm the dude that's like, da 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 da. But just know it's coming from a good space, and I do appreciate the work y'all do.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Melissa, you're great.
Yeah, you did a great job.
Thank you.